Hi, darlings. Thank you for joining me for another Deep Chat episode. I am here with the amazing Shamanic Arawak Priestess, and I'm going to actually just let you introduce yourself. I know that lots of people already know who you are. I know I've known who you are for quite a while now. I've followed your channel for a while now and adored you from the go. I was like, my sister from another mister. So absolutely, someone help saying it how it is, and I loved that about you. But I'll let you introduce yourself and just explain a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so I'm Shamanic Arawak Priestess. I've been on YouTube for 3 years now. So my background, so my spirituality ties into my background. So I practice Afro-Caribbean spirituality and Indigenous spirituality from the Caribbean. So I am someone who's initiated into Santeria. And I'm also doing the steps prior to the pandemic. I was supposed to be initiated in May. I'm on my way to becoming a mambo, which is a priestess in Haitian voodoo. So that's what I practice. And I pretty much, I pretty much come from a family of psychics and initiates and, I help people spiritually and things like that. So I'm all about reunification of the diaspora and just if people want to rediscover their cultural ties, I do have classes and services catered to that because I understand that we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we came from. And I feel like that's a very unique experience for African Americans here in the Americas. A lot of them don't know what tribes they come from. I do a lot of work with that. It's very emotional. So that's who I am.
Can I just ask, the work that you do with that, is that presumably that's partly like genealogy, like as far as you can, family tree stuff, but also just, I suppose, an acceptance of the not knowing, because for a lot of people, they're not going to be able to actually understand which country they originated from.
So what I do, and this might be a little controversial, but I'm going to be real here. I do it through my cultural. So I do something called the spiritual investigation. So a lot of people don't know that I actually have a mediumship. I am a medium. So what I do is when the person does a reading, I don't know anything about them. I've done readings where I don't even see the camera, so you don't know what ethnicity is reading with you. And they'll tell me the name of an ancestor, of a family member. I always say like a year or more, because in my culture, we're not supposed to contact the dead prior to a year. I'm recording. And so, sorry. Jeremiah, okay. If you're going to go in the kitchen, you got to go in the kitchen. I'm recording. Sorry, I have kids waking up now.
That's all right. I interviewed Maha from Maha's Treasure Box the other day, and she had a bird interrupting us.
Yeah, because I have like 4 kids, and they're like, "What's mom doing?" That's why I chose like early time. But literally, it's not genealogy. It's like I'll contact the spirit, and we start to see the tribes. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like it's not even a deck that's made for ancestor work. I actually worked a lot with tarot. Tarot tells me. I don't know how to I don't know. I just used Rider Waite or Morgan Greer. And it's crazy because I used to be like, maybe that's wrong. Because there's like a certain way you do it when you come from Afro-Caribbean culture. We just are taught how to do that. And I've had clients come back, take Ancestry, and it matches with the tribes that I said. And I'm like, so sometimes it's just things you can't explain. But one of the biggest joys of doing that, Kelly, is when somebody's crying and says, now I know that I'm part of the Yoruba tribe, so I have Orishas in my spirit core, or I have Dahomey or Congo, and I have Igbos, I have Loas, and we sit there and we cry together. And they ask me questions, and then that made me make classes, which have been sold out. I'm gonna try to make some more next year because traditional initiate cultures are so complex. I teach them one-on-one, so I can only take but so many students on top of my readings.
Those classes are hot. I've watched them sell out like hotcakes.
Yes, because it's one-on-one.
So what's the premise of them?
So it's okay. So it's 3 parts. I wrote a book for some of my classes, or I do PDFs. So there's worksheets. The hoodoo one is 2 months. The one is 3 months. It's the reason why I did 2 different ones. Some people can't afford to pay for the 2 month, like the 2 months one. So I did the 3 weeks one for people that it's more condensed, so it's faster pace, but it's affordable for some people. Maybe they don't have the budget for the 2 months. But in all of them, you get reading material, videos, how instruction from me. So basically, I'll cover like how do you make traditional altars to the deities? Who are your deities? Like you will learn which your deities are, and then I cater the lessons, the rituals, and everything according to your spirit cord, because everybody's spirit cord is different. Um, and that's what I do. And so you will learn how to one-on-one, like in books, you have like a list of spirits, and but here I'm gonna work with the ones you actually have and help you to build those relationships and manifest the things that you want through these practices that are like old, and people love them. They love it, and I teach it from not for you to get initiated, but just so you can understand. So if you choose to get initiated, one, you're not going to get scammed by somebody who's a scam artist. You're going to know what to look out for. You're going to have the foundational knowledge, and then you can see if this is a path that you want to be in. So that's what I do. And people love the one-on-one instruction because I allow like, so if you do the 2 months, you get 8 hours of one-on-one time with me, like we're doing right now. And you ask me whatever you want. I'll part of it, I'll lecture. The 3-week course, you get 3 hours. So they also love that interaction. So that's why I can't do them so much, because on top of readings and stuff, I'm also doing one-on-one teaching a lot. So
right. So it's a metaphysical guidance towards what the ancestry actually was, and therefore what spiritual practice is calling to that person.
yes.
That sounds very intense. Like, how do
Yeah.
you prepare for that and then decompress after that?
Yeah, it's a lot. That's why like when I book readings, I have to have like a 15-minute break in between them, because like I tell my clients, one is you never have they have tech, you know how it is, you do Skype, sometimes they might have tech issues, you might have a client that doesn't know how to do Skype, so you want to give them that time. And also it's a way, like the way that I cleanse myself, I use bell therapy or sound therapy. So I'll ring a bell, and that's how my mom always taught me when we do mediumship, because my mom is a really powerful medium. She always did, we have something called La Mesa Blanca, so the white altar. I've made videos about that in my like older videos. It's basically a white altar that Haitians have used, Cubans have used, some of them call them bovedas, and that's actually a all year round ancestral veneration. As a matter of fact, Mexico, a lot of people that serve Santa Muerte, they have a white altar, or they have like a yearly ancestral altar for the ancestors. And we do a bell when we start the mediumship session, and we do a bell when we end it, and that's what I do.
Okay, so you got that from your mother, who's the Haitian side of you, and then what's on the other side?
The same, like in the Puerto Rican side, same thing. They also use a white altar with the bell. And then a lot of my Taino practices, that's a lot what I get with my dad. I work a lot with native spirits, but they're more ancestral. There's this spirit in voodoo. His name is Black Hawk, and he is the spirit that they synchronize a lot of the natives with. And we venerate them. We venerate they call it the Indio, or the native spirit court. Like we venerate them through the white altar, through their own altars. I have days of the week like Saturdays and Mondays, like today's Monday. I talk to him, I sit with him in ritual, I give him food offerings. Like we feed the spirits with food too. We call that Igbo. So it's like a lot of people think sacrifices animals, but no, we give them flowers and fresh fruits and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And can I ask, with Santeria and also with the Haitian voodoo, are they both closed practices?
Yes, they are. Santeria is not as close as it used to be, because there's a lot of people outside the culture that do practice now. And they're like more open. But I noticed with Haitian voodoo, even when I go to a metaphysical shop that's Haitian owned, it's like, who are you? And then I'm like, no, my mom's Haitian. They'll be like, oh, okay. But when I started studying the history of Haiti, I understood why they're so closed off with their culture. Is because of, if you look at the state of Haiti right now, I kind of understand it. You know, Haiti it is going through a lot. And I could understand why they're like that. I think it's like a protection thing. Haiti voodoo has been very exploited. I mean, you
Yeah.
could buy voodoo chips, voodoo dolls at this toy store. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
You can get like voodoo dolls from Target and stuff. And yeah, it's.
I really even hate the term voodoo doll, but because I found out that that actually was created in English magic, the puppets. We used to call it something else in Africa. I can't think of the name right now. And they were actually for medicinal reasons. They'll stick pins to kind of put the affliction of like a client or a person that will come see them, and they will put that person's illness into the doll. And in Europe, it was more darker, like, not. And so over time, it became something that we got blamed for doing. And a lot of Haitians even hate the term brutal. Yeah,
Right.
we don't like it.
I see. Okay, so they basically were overlapped with each other because, yeah, I've seen poppets that have been found in the walls of English houses and stuff like
Yes.
that, and we can see that the magic that was done was malevolent. It was not, it wasn't nice
I'm
magic.
to be honest, I'm okay with that. I'm a two-headed doctor. I believe in balance. I just hate that Haitians are blamed for all the darker stuff. It's why I even hated the term black magic. I've corrected people, don't say that. Like, I made a video about that. I said, when I started to look at the definitions of black magic versus white magic, there was a lot of derogatory stuff, and I actually learned in history it was actually the N word was replaced by the word black magic. And so when I learned the racial history of it, I try not to use it a lot. So I always say, like, harmful magic, or like you said, malicious magic. But I always hated that term black magic, because, like, well, everything black is bad, So I don't know.
Yeah, I remember a few times when I was younger, people thinking they were savvy about witchcraft. They weren't witches, but if they found out I was a witch, they would say, "Oh, but are you a white witch?" Meaning, like, are you a good witch? And I
Yes.
remember even before I'd made the very intellectual connection between those two things, I was like, "Why is white good?" I think
Yeah.
that needs to be under the microscope. Yeah, so that used to make me feel uncomfortable for sure, but I don't think I was as conscious of why, of course. But yeah, I always was like, why do you immediately say, okay, but you're a white witch though, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why does that mean that you're it's kind of taken and put in this category with pure, nice, benevolent,
Yes, I
like,
even looked up the terms in the video, and people were like shocked. Oh my God. And I said, I actually cited the Webster's dictionary. And then I showed pictures of, like, folk magic and, like, high magic, and the folk magic, everybody looked miserable, and everybody was black and dark skinned. And then the white magic was all pretty and not, and I'm like, okay, guys, like, really? Like, that's what we're gonna do.
that's too obvious. That's even just really obvious. It's like blatantly in front of your face, just completely racially motivated. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. But that's why, I don't know, like 3 years ago, I made a video called Discrimination, because I was like, this is what's happening. I come from traditions where, I'm not gonna lie, there have been, and I know there's people that are vegans, and I don't mean to, like, upset anybody, but um, in certain cultures, they do offer animals to spirits. That is, it is what, but not in the way that TV portrays it. They eat it. In some places, we don't have access to vegetables if you come from a third world country. So I understand its place in certain parts of the world, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And as actually a committed vegan for quite a few years now, I'm always really conscious of the fact that vegans can be really, if they're not careful, they can be duped into being incredibly bigoted against very marginalized cultures. And then actually they work against themselves in that regard. They start being really, they start not focusing on the main problems. The main problems are, like, unbelievable industrialized factory farming, tons of people that have loads of other shit to eat that are eating meat. The problem is not, people fishing who've been fishing for thousands of years and, like, pray over the fish before they eat it. They're not the issue. They're really being part of biodiversity by doing that. That is part of that's what's dietarily available to them. That makes sense. And that's what vegans would eat too if they lived in those places, or, in the rainforest, they might eat certain bugs for protein or whatever. That would
Exactly.
make sense. It would be part of biodiversity. What we have a problem with is, like, huge industrialized factory farming, the unnecessary harm and death and
I
everything
agree.
else. Yeah, so when vegans start targeting indigenous people and stuff, I just think, whoa, 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 like, they're as close to nature as we're going to get. If they're going to kill anything, you're going to know it's going to be
And
in
they
as
use everything. Sometimes that ritual is the only meal that the person from that village lives, because in Haiti, everything's sustained farming. Like, you grow what you eat. They were one of the few countries that actually fought Monsanto when they tried. You know how they have like a, I don't know how, like a monopoly on seeds. Like, Haiti
yeah,
fought against that. Um, and their animals live amongst them, kind of like if you think about it, traditional pagans did back in the days, where they lived with their animals and they had that relationship and things like that. But I also
yeah.
respect vegetarianism and veganism, because my youngest daughter was actually born a vegan. She doesn't like anything that comes from animals, and so I always have to find like alternatives for her, and I respect that. Like I can't take her food shopping because she'll cry in the supermarket. She has
Wow.
such a connection to animals. Yeah, and when I was pregnant with her, I could not eat anything from animals for the
No
whole.
way. She
Yeah,
was
and I was
like,
like, I didn't know. Yeah, I
believers.
didn't know that you can be actually born like that. I never knew that.
I love that. That's adorable. Yeah, I think that vegans and indigenous cultures who use animal sacrifice or, you know, certain, you know, practices such as that, I don't think we have to be at odds with each other whatsoever. I think there's a much bigger monster we all need to be fighting together. And when we start picking strips off of each other, that's exactly what Monsanto wants. That's what they want. They want
Yeah.
us to start fighting each other instead of fighting them.
Yes.
And so we've just been duped. I don't want to be duped into arguing the toss about whether or not an indigenous tribe is ethical. No, I want to look at the people coming in with the bulldozers who are like making the orangutans extinct and focus on that.
Yes, and the ones that are killing the sharks. I was watching a documentary about that for luxury eating and taking the fin and throwing the whole shark away. Like, why?
That is
Disgusting.
devastating. Yeah, that's devastating to watch.
25 to 30 million sharks. I'm like, really? There's a lady who swims with sharks. I was watching the documentary. I was like, that's amazing. Like, she touches the sharks.
She's
Yes.
amazing.
I was like, oh my God. It was so spiritual to see that. I was like, oh my God. I showed it to my kids. I'm like, but don't go swimming with sharks now, though.
It's amazing. I've got a Sea Shepherd t-shirt and all that jazz, you know, I'm all into that. So okay, so you've obviously you practice Santeria, you practice Haitian voodoo. You've obviously got a very I would say it's complex. There's lots of different things that intersect to make your spirituality what it is, and that made me interested to ask you: have you ever experienced a crisis of faith whilst walking your path and just been like, I don't want to do
Yes.
anything anymore?
Yes. So let me tell you, growing up Indigenous was a very unique experience because I think a lot of parents felt like they had to censor things because of the controversy stuff that we practice. It's when you think of Santeria, Ifa, Haitian voodoo, it's very demonized. So I think a lot of our elders kept this secret for like protecting us. You couldn't let the neighbors know. There's people that practice Ifa that have the cops call on them. We get accused. Yeah, we get accused of human sacrificing, baby killing. Like it's really bad. Even to this day, like there's people that have actually been arrested for practicing their indigenous cultural practices. So I guess that's why I know now that they kept everything so secret and wouldn't explain things. But when I would see people get possessed, because we do that, we do allow spirits to come into us. I would think that was like, what are they doing? Oh my God, like what's happening? Why are they speaking different languages? But it's no different than if you go to a church and people like get the Holy Spirit, you know? But I didn't know any better. So in my younger years, for most of my time, even in my 20s, I was Christian. I was an ordained pastor. Like I was a fanatical, very fundamentalist Christian because I was like, oh, my mom's a devil worshiper, you know? So I did. And then I had a crisis of faith because when I was going through a lot of stuff with my second oldest, and it was a lot of spiritual stuff going on, my mom saved him spiritually. And I remember going into the ancestral altar with her. And when she actually invoked the spirits on me, I have never felt that peace and power, even in the church. And when I started seeing like the changes that it did and feeling the power of the spirits, I left the church. I went into this spirituality, but I've always struggled like how to. It's not easy to be out of the broom closet because, like I said, of the controversy. And so, yeah, it's just a very interesting experience. But with my kids, I'm very open with everything that I do for the most part. Like they know what to do. They know how to salute the spirits. They take part in the rituals and things like that. Because I think if you are more open, then people are less scared. And that's why I made my channel. I wanted to give a different face to the practice, if that makes sense.
I'm going to ask you a question. It might be a little bit controversial, but I just feel really cool to ask you now as you're saying that. So, if you see people that are not from those ancestral traditions, you know, just like a white witch from, you know, just white on both sides from Seattle or London or wherever, talking about these things, talking about these traditions and practices and how to do them and teaching them and stuff, these things that literally the cops have shut down when your communities have tried to have been engaging in them. How does that make you feel? Because that does happen. Like there are people that are not engaged in the community and not engaged in the tradition teaching these things. Does it make you feel any kind of way that they are teaching it and not having that same kind of treatment?
Well, it depends. Like my question will always be, are you initiated? Because you can be initiated. In Haiti, we initiate white people all the time. If they really have a calling, they will go to Haiti. They will be like how Wiccans do, like their rites and initiations. If you're part of a coven, we do the same thing. You would live among Haitians. You would eat amongst Haitians. You would get teachings from the elders, and you would, pay for the rituals. That money actually goes back to the impoverished people. And in Haitian culture, we have to give to the less fortunate. We have to. That's what voodoo is about. Like that's what they charge you for stuff. You actually give back to Haiti. That's what you're supposed to do. So they do have people that are non-black people that are actually initiated that are good. But what I know the difference is when somebody's initiated, we are more likely not to say things because what a lot of people don't know, when you get initiated, we have to swear to secrecy, just like the Gardeners did, just like the Alexandrians did with Wiccans and stuff like that. They had to not share the teachings. We're not supposed to share the teachings. It's why I have to be really careful what I share in my channel. I'm more upset about the oversharing of the secrets because a lot of times it's false information.
Mm.
I'm more like, at least if you're gonna say stuff, can it be accurate? That's it. To me.
Okay.
But if you're not initiated and you're just like, my biggest thing, my most annoying thing is like they'll have an Orisha next to Lakshmi or like a European goddess and they're all on the same altar and I'm like, no. So that's my thing. Like
that wouldn't be acceptable. That's not acceptable to have Orisha on the same altar as European goddesses and things.
no. And even let's say if you're a daughter of Yemaya, let's say Yemaya's calling you. I always watch when people say that because I'm like, where's your Elegua? Because we know that Elegua is the road opener. He rules over all languages. So he's our interpreter. A lot of us are not speaking our native Yoruba languages anymore. So he's like the one that translate things. You can't get anywhere without the road opener spirits. They open up the communications and intercede on your behalf to the other Orishas. In Haitian voodoo, what I practice, it's Papa Legba, and you have to go through Papa Legba in order to get to the other Loas. Loas and Orishas are completely different things. Hoodoo and conjure is different, Santeria is different, and Haitian voodoo is different. It's even different than African voodoo, and it's even different than Dominican voodoo. Like they're all different religions.
Okay, so if you don't hear any mention of Papa Legba, then you're kind of thinking, how have you been led to this goddess?
Yeah. And that also, like, I know some people don't care, like, even that terminology, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I know other people do. And the only reason I don't like it is not that I don't like the term goddess. Jeremiah. It's not that I don't like the term goddess. It's more like I notice when people use it, they try to Europeanize the spirits. That's why I, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even as I said it, I was like, hang on. Am I supposed to call you? Am I supposed to call you goddess?
Some people do, and they're comfortable with it. I've had arguments with them because they're like, "Well, I'm a daughter, and that's what I'm gonna say," and I'm like, "Okay," and I respect that. But the way that I grew up, traditionally, we didn't call them goddesses. I think that's like a newer thing, or maybe that's a way to try to fit in. I don't know. I just personally, it's weird to me.
Yeah.
Because there's even one God.
So to clarify, like from your perspective, one of the main reasons you might have a spiritual slump would be because, you know, your own mother, for example, would be like, we need to keep this hush hush. We've got to keep this very much on the down low. Like this is actually not even, you know, people will come and try and stop us. So that would be the main reason for a slump rather than any internal lack of motivation. It would be more like external discrimination.
Yes. So I'm going to put it even in more recent history. In Haiti, I was talking to my mambo. There were 12 million people killed in recent history. We're talking about in the 2000s. Voodoo just became legal in Haiti in the 2000s. Think about that. Haitian voodoo was created in Haiti, and Haitians, the Christian missionaries, the missionaries that come to Haiti, sponsored a killing of a breaking into the temples, breaking sacred statues, and lynching and burning Haitians alive in the name of Jesus. And so this is why voodoo is so closed off, because they're afraid of anybody from the outside. It's not a racist thing. It's not a prejudice thing. It's not we think we're better. Um, it's a self-preservation thing.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, that makes total sense.
That still happens. That still
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, and it's that transgenerational trauma as well too, isn't it? That if you feel that has happened, and that's, you know, come down to you as an understanding, like you have to keep this safe because people will destroy it.
Yeah. And you know what's relics that are hundreds of years old that they just break it, smash it, burn your temples down? I mean, imagine if they did that to the church, the outpouring, if they ever did that to like the diocese or any other church, like the world would be going crazy.
Yeah,
But
it
it's
makes
to
me
bring
think
and
about
sample our stuff.
when the Cathedral of Notre Dame was burning and like billionaires were giving billions of pounds to it. It was like, wow, imagine just the sheer amount of indigenous important sacred relics that we have just like thrown away, melted down for gold or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But my answer to that is, that's why I offer the classes, because if you have a calling and these spirits are in your spirit court, I want to teach you. Like, I always said, like, the best way to do it is to learn from somebody. So if somebody's like, I have a calling for voodoo, I have loas, I have offered classes, and I'm gonna try to do them again next year to teach people how to attend to them and learn about them, because I feel like education.
Yeah,
like if
absolutely.
you're educated, that you can practice. That's how I feel.
I like
I don't know
that.
if that makes any sense, but
yeah, that makes sense completely. In your sort of, obviously we talked previously about your classes where you connect people with their ancestry, and obviously you do a lot of ancestor work, you teach ancestral veneration. What does that look like in your practice to venerate and work with your ancestors? I'm really intrigued because I don't have any real feeling that from me.
Okay,
That's not
so
that.
I have native lineage. For those of you that don't know, I'm part Arawak from my dad's side. So those are the natives of the first people of Puerto Rico. Weird thing about that, and in the video that I did about cultural appropriation a long time ago, they try to write us out of history. So they'll tell people, oh, that tribe got extinct. No, the tribe did get mixed. So they are mixed race people, but they're still native. You have people that live in their own, like they are starting to relearn their culture, and the tribal is separate from like everybody else. And they're rediscovering their roots because they're trying to fight for recognition as a tribe. But scientists came on the island and found out that between 60 to 80% of the inhabitants actually still have indigenous ancestry. So how can a race of people be extinct if the ancestry is in our blood? So so with that being said, those are the ancestors that I venerate. I venerate my Taino lineage. My mother, my real name is Taina. My mom named me after my tribe.
That's how you pronounce it, Taina.
Yes, Taina. I'm named after the Tainos, the Arawaks. And I pay homage to them. I have them on an altar. Everything that I buy from the altar is made by Native Americans for the reservation. I don't buy anything that's made outside of that. Any dream catchers, drums, anything like that. If I do use sage, which I use very sparingly because of what they're doing to indigenous people with sage, they're actually displacing Native Americans for this over consumeration of sage. So the people that are known for that are actually being thrown out of their tribal lands in order to meet this demand that we have with sage. So I try to use that rarely. Even Yerba Santa, Palo Santo, I try to use it sparingly. I give them those types of offerings. This is controversial, but tobacco is very sacred. I do smoke tobacco only for religious reasons. I do smoke tobacco to my spirits. I never drink alcohol for the native spirits. When it comes to my African spirits, not all of them take that. I smoke tobacco for them and I drink for them. So we do alcohol too, which I know that's controversial, but that's part of my culture. Um, we see alcohol different. So, and we give them food offerings. Like we have parties for the spirits. We do drumming ceremonies. So in voodoo, my Haitian side, um, the drums. So a lot of people that play the African drums, like in voodoo rituals, some of them have to learn that for 10 years. And each spirit has a different way of playing the drums that invokes that spirit. So they all have their songs, their salutations, their dances, if you will. And so we do a lot of dancing and singing and cooking certain foods and things like that. So it's a community-based religion. So
I love that. Yeah, I think that the party aspect of it really appeals to me, for
yeah, it's
definite.
fun.
I love
Lots of
it.
food and drinking and spirits and just having fun. And our spirits are not very like holy. So some of them come in very like they'll curse and like it's very like just I don't know. I love it because it's very like non-judgmental. And in some African ATRs in the Caribbean, I can't speak for everybody, God is actually non-binary. Our God is neither no gender or both male and female. We don't believe in like a male God.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think that's very well known.
Yes, Shango in some paths, he could be non-binary. He could be no gender. In some aspects, he could be female, and in some aspects, he could be male. Some of the spirits have 100 and more than 100 different aspects.
Wow. Well, like gender aspects.
Yes. So, um, unfortunately, because of colonization, they make it seem like LGBTQ plus, IA plus aren't welcome. But that's what I'm talking about. The colonization and whitewashing, that was never the original intention because if Shango, who's a very strong Orisha, it has no gender in some paths, or he's either masculine or feminine, then how can they discriminate against a certain group of people? And because I said that on one of my videos, I've actually had people from that community like attack me. That's why I had to disable my video because I'm like, no, we're talking historically here. Before colonization, a lot of African tribes are very accepting. So we're indigenous people. This is why we're letting other people influence our way of thinking.
Right. Yeah. So it's decolonization that you're putting your own mind through basically to
Yes,
stop that thing. That makes
yes.
sense.
Because
Yeah.
originally we weren't accepting of that, and then now there's a thing, and I don't like that.
Do you know the thing that I actually loved about you when I first came across your channel was that you were so expressive and you were just completely authentic and you riffed on topics and you were very unapologetic and very passionate about what you were talking about. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you just came out like that, or is that something you had to learn?
I had to work on it because for a long time I would be quiet about things. And I think it was when I discovered my ancestral spirits, it gave me like this. I found out, I was like, why do I always get like these really Congo spirits? I did my ancestry. The majority of my ancestry is from the Congo and from Ghana. Um, and then I have the Taino. So then I'm like, oh, it's because I come from warriors. Because once I discovered them, it's like they gave me that strength to just, you know what, they don't like me, they don't like me. I have to say what I have to say. But YouTube gave me like the strength because at first I was very like calm. And then as I started seeing videos and people saying things on videos unintentionally, it wasn't me. When I started seeing the ignorance about my path, that made me want to speak out.
Right. Okay. To put people right.
Yeah. And it was also because I serve a spirit called La Madama. And La Madama spirit is literally a spirit court, a group of spirits. She's not just one spirit of
Mhm.
anybody who's from the diaspora. So she's a female representative of any female enslaved ancestors. And when I would speak to her in ritual, she's like, I want you to speak about these things. Like she gave me that courage, like through working with her. I'm like, wow, if she can go through slavery and literally be considered property, like who am I to just sit here and not say certain things? So if she can do it, I can do it. I come from strong women, damn it. Like, and then I just started talking more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you absolutely just like you brought that hereditary strength into yourself.
yep. And then another way that I work through ancestral work. So I had this ancestral healing workshop that I did before. Because the ancestral workshop is more to teach you how to work with the spirits who are in your spirit courts. Then I have conjure, which is an actual conjure class in hoodoo. And then I had another one that was, it was a shorter one. It was like 2 weeks. And that one was specifically to deal with ancestral traumas, like what either past life traumas you've had or what traumas did your ancestors have. So I would do like a past life reading and we would see like what issues did you struggle with in past lives or did your ancestors struggle with, and then how can we fix it physically and through ritual spiritually.
Right.
And so then I do work that way too. I do believe that we can heal ourselves through the ancestors. It's why I work with so many enslaved ancestors, because through learning through their experience through mediumship, I can work on things in this life. I can do what they couldn't do, and I can learn from their lessons. So that's what I do too with my students and stuff.
Love that. I really love that. I was watching an interview with someone. Oh my God, I really wish I could remember who it was. I know it was on For Harriet's channel. She's been interviewing some incredible, incredible women lately that are just blowing my mind. And one of them said something like, there were many, many women who knew they would die as slaves, but they still sewed blankets for people going down into the tunnels to escape slavery. They still they still like got packs together for them. They still they like I don't know, they knew that there wasn't going to be their future. They knew that they were nearing the end of their life and that it hadn't come at their time, but they still planted those seeds because they knew that the next generation may not be enslaved. And I was like, I just need to go and lie down after that. That's my whole lesson for the day. Like, yeah, and it reminded me of that quote about if you can plant a tree and tend to it, knowing you'll never sit underneath it, you've discovered the meaning of life. And it's
Yeah.
almost that's exactly what you just said. Like, I'm doing what my ancestors could not do.
Yeah. And I remember when La Madama was like, I want you to show me on YouTube, I was really scared because in the Caribbean, the imagery that I showed isn't seen that way. But I know in America it is. And so I was like, I just want to make a disclaimer. She's not a mammy. She's La Madama spirit. And I just like got so passionate about talking about her. It's amazing to me, Kelly, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional. The amount of love now. I see other people making videos about her. And 3 years ago, that was like a no-no. Um,
Mhm.
and teaching people how to work with her, and they're like, oh my God, like working with La Madama spirit has been so life-changing. I've come into my intuition. I've had psychic dreams. I've seen her in my dreams. That's the lady who came to me. Reconnecting them with that um ancestor, and seeing people give her that place of honor and wanting to know how to, because working with La Madama, you won't find it in any books. There's no books written on that. It is such a closed tradition, that aspect of her, and just teaching people to reconnect with her has been so amazing. Like, it's amazing. And now it's a different energy. When I'm like, oh, you have a Madama spirit, people are happy now. It's like she's seen as a good thing. And I love that, because she's like, I want you to connect me with my children. Like, I want to. And I remember I was doing somebody's reading, and she was crying, and the spirit told me to tell her, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you to rediscover your roots. Like, your African ancestors have been waiting for you. I've done rituals where we have taken Indigenous or African descent people that are wandering souls because they died so bad. So nobody knows their names, and they sometimes say their names, and then they'll find out, like, I did have a relative that name. And we do a ritual to put them like to sleep, like they could rest now. And it's homecomings, I call them. So it's been really powerful, the ancestral work in my personal life, because things that I've done. My Madama spirit actually led me to find in the slave schedule my African ancestor that came from Africa. She was from the 1840s, 1850s, and they wrote her name. I got to know a name. And that's a big deal to us. Like, a lot of us can't trace our history past the 1800s.
Yeah, yeah, that is a big deal, and it's such a thing to be bereft of that I think you can't understand unless you're bereft of it.
Yeah, and
Um,
I work a lot with that. I think, like, that's a really a thing, and I talk about it a lot, because I feel like in order to have a better future, we have to heal from what that did to all of us. Um,
yeah,
and I
absolutely.
do a lot of work with that, and then you could take that and you could channel all that energy into something positive now.
Totally. Yeah. I want to touch on the very powerful video that you did. Like, it was so powerful, I like nearly fell over. It was asking, white spiritual people to question if they are true allies, and it was very, very, very impassioned. and I had to share it on my Facebook and my Twitter because it was just so raw and passionate and informative and eye-opening. I thought it was beautiful, and I think a lot of other people felt the same way. It was very moving, and I think it shook a lot of people out of their complacency. And so I'm moved to ask you, what do you think that white spiritual people should or could think of doing going forward to be on, you know, to be, I guess, on the right side, or to be doing things that are not harmful?
The most powerful thing we can do, and I think that's everywhere, is research our elected officials. What are their relationships with Indigenous people? Like in America, the APL was a big thing. I was very pro not drilling in the native sites. And so when I vote, I try to vote for people, and I'm not going to say names because I know it's not a political thing. Bernie Sanders. There are for Indigenous people, rights of the people, things like that. I'm coughing her, and things like that. People that are for the environment. Indigenous people, we're very connected to the environment. And I feel like pagans are, and anybody who's earth-based, religion-based, we love the earth. So I feel like that should be something we should demand of our politicians. People that are for Black Lives Matters, whether that offends you or not. You know, people that are for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and any type of marginalized people. We can only do things through the ballots. That's what makes laws. You know, voting. What officials that are making laws and things. I think that's the first thing you can do. In the voter polls. You know, try to look at it from outside of yourself. Like maybe you're not uncomfortable, but think of the person that has the skin and feels unsafe around cops. Really listen to the conversation when people talk about defunding the police. I think a lot of people get, oh, we just don't want to have police, we're going to have anarchy. That's not the case. If you're going to march with us, don't do it violently. One of the saddest things I see is non people of color or non-Black people vandalizing things. And I had to delete, I blocked somebody from my channel because she kept saying like, F a ally, let's rip everything down. I said, sweetie, I don't have the privilege of ripping things down. Like, they're gonna talk to you first. They're gonna shoot me first. You know what I mean? So don't put marginalized people in danger thinking that, you know, by trying to be like an ally. And another thing is like, don't take us out of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. The way that you mentioned the sort of recklessness, that is the privilege of whiteness. So like, I can just totally kick this wing mirror off this cop car. No one's going to shoot me. Yeah, that's something that just needs to be. You need to see
Yeah,
it.
because I think the march is like, if you look at it, and I was like, what's going on? I would see a lot of pictures and videos of like non-brown people and non-Black people just breaking cars and breaking, and I'm like, that's not helping because like the guy was saying, he's like, there was that interview made me cry. He goes, I just escaped from Africa because they just abolished slavery. He was from South Africa. They just abolished slavery in South Africa. In Libya, there's still slavery going on. And this other guy's like, I escaped Libya, and now as a Black man, I have to be afraid of getting killed by the cops. And now you see all these non-Black people breaking everything, and we're getting rubber bullets shot at us and tear gas. That's not fair. Um, if you're gonna be part of it, ask how you can be an ally. You know, it was one of the most beautiful things that I saw because I did participate in many of marches since George Floyd. When I saw all these young non-brown people in the marches, and they asked, "How can we help?" And when the organizers said, "Can you guys go in the front lines because they're less likely to shoot at us or run us over?" And they were so willing to do that, that speaks 1,000 words. When you're actually willing to put yourself out there and like, you know, whatever happens, happens. When the cops were trying to get violent with us in one of the marches, because we marched into one of the government buildings and some of the cops were making jokes like that we're gonna run over the teenagers. And I overheard that. And this white lady was like, don't worry about it. And she used her privilege to stand up for all of us. And she made a human shield with like non-brown people. And basically, like, if you're gonna run them over, you're gonna run us over. That gives me hope because she doesn't have to do that.
That's very beautifully said. I love that. I'm going to try not to get emotional now. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your business. I've lurked around your business. You're a very trusted reader and runner of courses that are usually hard to get or buy because they're fucking sold out. I was just wondering, obviously your reviews are really good. People love the stuff that they receive from you. Do you have any advice for people who are right at the beginning and want to start their business doing readings or doing workings or doing anything like that?
Okay, so what I had to learn from the beginning, there's so many spiritualists and tarot readers. It's like, I look at you, you're your own unique. You have your own services. You're Kelly. Like, you give what Kelly can give, and I give what I can give. And I think just try to be an individual. Look at the unique things that you have to offer and like market that. You know what I mean? I think that will help you to stand out from everybody else and do the things you're passionate about. Don't think that you have to read a certain way. Like, you have readers that do email readings, and that's fine because there are people that like those. There's people, I like doing live readings because my background is in psychic hotlines, and I won't say the name of the psychic hotline because I don't recommend them anymore. It was like this through live chat. You would be in live chat and somebody would book you and that kind of thing. So I always like that. But if you're someone who does pre-recorded readings, I think you need to see what's your best reading style. I think that we don't need to get caught up in, because I know when I discovered Tarot Tube, I got kind of a little crazy with the tarot thing. I think a lot of us didn't have that many decks, and they were like, "Oh, oh, oh, you don't have to necessarily get all these decks. One deck and you're good." Have that relationship with it. Make sure that's the deck that when somebody asks you a question, you can just like answer really good questions. So, use your tools that work for you, and just have a business plan. Set a good work schedule, have good work ethics, because working from home is different than having a boss. Like, you can get very lazy fair about it, or you can like really push yourself. So make sure you have like goals, like what do you want your business to look like? How many hours a day is you're going to work? Do you want to do like a website? Do you want to do it through Facebook? So, come up with a business plan. And like I said, biggest thing is like love what you do and be passionate, and know that you're nothing without the clients. Like, make sure that they're getting what they paid for. Make sure that they're a priority. Make sure that you're meeting the client's needs. And also make sure, if you're someone who's like, I don't fortune tell, like put that in the thing. If you do that, like put it, like say what kind of reader you are, because there are people that don't like fortune telling readings. There's people that do like them. So make sure that you put your little disclaimers, and don't ever go against your ethics. Never. There are things that I would not read about, and I put that in my disclaimer all the time.
Totally, because you're so uncomfortable if you just feel like you're forcing yourself to go down an avenue that is not in alignment with your ethics. It just doesn't feel right, and it feels like, God, I needed 10 times the money to make that worthwhile because it didn't feel right. I can't imagine it.
And know your worth. I think a lot of us undercharge because we don't know our worth. Oh, because this is weird thing I've seen, and I never heard of it, where some people try to make you feel bad because you charge, but that's spiritual. Okay, but it's also a business. I also have to pay, my bills. I also have to live. This is what I do full-time basis. So there's sometimes this guilting. Know what you're worth as well. Like, know your worth, and charge what you're comfortable with. If that sits good with your spirit, then that's okay. You don't need to justify that to anybody.
I agree with that completely. And I remember a long time ago on my Facebook page, somebody told me that they had watched every single video I'd ever done, and they wanted to let me know that they were very disappointed that I was putting a bunch of my videos that were involved, like part of a course, behind a paywall. She was like, why don't you just give this away for free? And I was like, okay, let me just get this completely straight. You're saying you've watched 530 videos or whatever I'd done at the time for free, for nothing on the internet, but you resent me paying my rent.
Exactly.
There's a fucking problem here,
We
and it's
can't
not
give
with me.
and tarot readings in exchange for rent. That's not realistic.
Completely. And before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what do you really love about the online card slinger and witchy community, and what do you not so much love about it?
Okay, what I'm loving about it now, so this is post community and friendships. In the beginning, I felt like an outsider, so that's why I didn't love. I'm gonna start with the negative, and then I want to end it positive. So what I didn't love was, I noticed that there was this like wall of close groupness. And I didn't like the free chat. There's some channels, I'm not gonna say channel names, and how like I would never feel like nobody would ever talk to me, and things like that. I didn't like that. And I didn't like that when I addressed it, it's kind of like it was brushed under the rug, like, no, we all get along, everything's inclusive, everything's perfect. And I'm like, no, there are some people that have some prejudice, there are some people that are, very exclusatory and things like that. Like, let's talk about it. So I didn't like the fact that, like, there's a lot of issues that people don't talk about, and I don't understand that, because I feel like spirituality should be about everything, like not just like woo woo things, but like things. So that I don't like. What I do like is that I'm starting to see more inclusion. What I do like is I'm starting to see more conversations. What I do like is I met people like you, and just so many other like good channels and stuff through some of the tags that I've done. That I like, and I've also discovered the smaller channels. Like, I love discovering new channels when people are just starting out, watching their channels grow. So I love the connections that I've made. I love watching other professional tarot readers saying how their business is growing. I love when they're like, oh, I watched your video and I relate to you. Like, I love how some of us have really connected through our videos, and we feel like, even though none of us have ever met, we feel like this connection. Like, I love that part. I love the community of it, like, in that sense.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that it took us over 30 minutes to start filming today, because we were like,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. I really do appreciate that so much. And I love stumbling across a channel and being like, oh my God, you're the one I've been waiting for. It feels good. And it's nice to just like, yeah, to support each other in that way. I think that's really great. And, to your mention of the less positive stuff, I think if anybody ever came to me and they said that they had an issue that I know I would never directly experience, I would definitely stop first before making an assumption and be like, just remember that you'll never directly experience this. So there might be a chance that you'd be very tempted to say, you're not directly experiencing it either, because I'm not. So nobody can be. Simple. Done. We're done. Let's brush it all under the rug. And, and just to hold a little bit more space for, for someone who goes through things I don't understand. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and I'm really loving the more inclusion, and I want more and more and more of it.
Yes,
I want to see
and there's
people
more
come to
talking about it. Like, you made your video, and then I made my video, and all these things. I do have to confess this. It was interesting because the day that I made my video, I wasn't going to post it. And then I saw your video about how to be an ally, like kind of the same topic, but like from a white person's perspective. You actually inspired me to post my video because I was afraid of the backlash. And was I going to get canceled? Was somebody going to like report me to YouTube because now like they're demonetizing everything? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it because there are a lot of people like Kelly on YouTube that actually want to hear about it. Like Sanskrit Blues made a lot of good videos. Just a lot of people have been making videos lately. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of. She's had really interesting topics about the subject. And it's just a beautiful thing. Like, I've had so many people reach out to me because of it. Yeah, it was a very emotional video, but it was very healing for me.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
didn't,
And
I didn't intend to get so emotional about it when I made the video. I just had real facts. I like to write notes before I make videos, but I don't know. Something took over me and I was like crying and yelling. And I was like, oh my God, do I really like want to post this? But then I just like pressed the upload button and just like, okay, it's out there now.
yeah, no, I totally think that everybody was in that exact same mood, and that if they weren't in that mood, they were shaken into that mood in that moment. Like, yeah, why the fuck are Native women going missing in record numbers? Why is nobody looking for them? Why are these things happening to Black kids? Why is this happening in this country? Like,
Yes.
I just feel like sometimes
And
something
the
needs you to
last
do
straw,
something.
I want to share this with you. The reason why I posted the video and I was so emotional, there's a neighbor that we have around here, and he's very anti anybody else. And he had said this derogatory thing because I have mixed race children. I'm mixed race, my kids are mixed race. So he called her like the N word, and I got upset, and I did what I did. I went in his face, and long story short, he tried to hit me with something, like a metal stick. And so I had to like close the door on him. When I called the police and there's a dent on my door, they're like, well, you aggravated him because, and I was like, but he was calling my daughter a racist name while I was outside with my child. I was, yeah, but you have to understand, people still think like that. And that just set me off. Yeah, it set me off because like he never got arrested for attempting to assault me. It was basically like, and the cops talked to him like he was a sweetie baby. Oh, it's Mr. Such and such, and he's just known to be like that. He's very outspoken. So I was so upset from that incident. I just kind of made that video and that with that energy of like just venting. It was, to be honest,
Right.
never a video I was gonna actually post. And then when I saw your video, I was like, I'm just gonna post it because this was like right after George Floyd. It was just a accumulation of everything. And like I shared in my channel, I did a series on February. It was called Melanated Excellence, which was 28 days, well, 29 days of celebrating what Black spiritualists contributed to spirituality. I mentioned in one of my videos that I was a victim of police brutality 4 years ago, where I almost got killed by the cops for a noise disturbance. And I got beat and tased on my neck, 23 bruises, and ended up in the hospital by the police. Yeah, and because I was going to take legal actions, they never charged me with anything. But I was almost killed. And I remember yelling to my daughter, call your father, tell him to call the lawyer, and them beating me up and just thinking like I'm not going to live. And it was literally me and my partner got into an argument. They took him out of the room and they beat me. And I remember being in the ambulance and them saying, this is why we feel people should keep to their own kind. And so all these things is why I'm so outspoken about Black life. I am a victim of that. Black women are also victims of that too. I feel like they don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah, thank you for sharing how you came into that video, because I mean, it makes, of course, like it would have made sense anyway. Your indignation and your anger made complete sense to me anyway, but knowing that's where you were earlier in the day is very sobering for me to know.
Yeah, like I'm racially targeted a lot, like in Pennsylvania. So I am going to be relocating. That is something I'm working on because ever since a current administration has been in office, people just say like the nastiest things to me. And I'm like, wow, like they wouldn't have said like 7 years ago.
Yeah, they really
It's
have a mandate. They
um,
have a mandate for hatred now. It's like they fully see that as their permission slip.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not gonna cry, I promise. But yeah, so that's what happens.
We could both end on a stop. No, let's not do that. Darling, thank you so much for coming onto my channel and talking about these things that at times like are really, difficult and tumultuous. I really, really appreciate it. And I have loved talking to you. And I'm not surprised in any way that I love talking to you. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and may you continue to be blessed. And just thank you for giving me this platform to talk on.
Thank you. I'm going to leave all your links to everything down below. Everybody go and follow on every bloody thing. And yeah, I'll leave all the links below. And thank you so much for being here, and much love, everybody.